Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Muy buenas tardes a todos. Gracias por estar presentes hoy día. Just so that we acknowledge what is going to be taking place within the next couple of minutes, I'll be sharing a statement. Then I'm going to ask the chief to do the same in English. We'll take some questions, if any. And then we're going to come back. I'll come back and acknowledge the statement or read the statement in Spanish as well. And then the deputy chief of police would also have some comments in Spanish. Okay? So, nuevamente, gracias. Thank you once again for being here. We are gathered here today to address an ongoing issue that have been disrupting the quality of life in our community. Too often on weekend evenings, individuals gather to intent on partying, resulting in loud and audacious behavior, disrupting our residents and tarnishing our community's reputation. And when I said individuals, I'm sure you're aware that this is a few unfortunate individuals that is tarnishing our reputation. We are all fed up and are frustrated by the complete disregard for public facilities, in this case, the historic Pagoda and its surrounding area. In fact, I say in this case, the Pagoda, which is what we're referring to this specific press conference, but it also took place in the first Energy Stadium. My understanding that there was also some disruption in Dietrich Park as well. We have tried various solutions in the Pagoda in an attempt to mitigate this problem. Despite extra police patrols by Reading and Central Berks Regional Police, it has not been enough. And issues persist. In fact, a private security company was contracted to patrol the area and notify police of inappropriate behavior last year. But this approach had limited effect and was not sustainable. Even installing and locking a gate near the Pagoda entrance in the evening proved to be insufficient. While I am reluctant to restrict access to the Pagoda and the overlooks on the Skyline Drive for the law-abiding public, which is the majority, we must take action. We are all beyond the preliminary stages of installing substantial gates at each end of the portions of Skyline Drive, at List Road at one end, and at Doria Drive and Shearer Road at the other. Once installed, these gates will be closed from early evening until morning to prevent such gatherings. With the Pagoda itself closed for repairs, the gates may remain closed for the entire weekend, unfortunately, and early evening on weekends as deemed necessary. You know, when I say that these disruptive behaviors are occurring, not only am I hearing it, I'm seeing it on social media, I'm witnessing it myself. Very often I drive by and I'm at awe of this unfortunate disruption that occurs. In fact, I live several miles away. And on weekends, I try to enjoy a quiet evening in my backyard, and music is that loud that I hear it in my own backyard. I could only imagine what that disruption is doing to the neighbors that are closer than I am. Folks, that's unacceptable. And that's it, we're done. This measure may seem harsh, but we feel it is necessary to stop this disruptive and dangerous behavior. And I quote, dangerous. This past weekend, another gathering escalated to the point where a police officer was assaulted by cowards who chose not to follow the rules or respect the laws. Yes, you could quote me at that. Cowards. There's no other better word to say it. This kind of behavior is unacceptable and must be addressed decisively. Next, I'm going to ask Chief Vazquez to provide more information on that incident.
Thank you all for being here. Very serious issue. So glad to see city council members here, members of the community here as well, our managing director. It's a very big issue for us, and we're trying to address it the best we can. I have a sort of a timeline of what happened in the events, and I'm just going to read this, and then we can get into questions. So on June 8th at about 20:05 hours, that's about 8, just a little bit after 8, officers were working in an illegal dirt bike initiative, summer initiative that I started in efforts to reduce the number of complaints and violations of the law committed by many of these folks in these groups that come through our city, and many which are illegal and stolen bikes. This particular group that came to our city this Saturday, many of the people were from other cities in Pennsylvania, Allentown, Philadelphia, New Jersey, and New York, coming to our city to disturb our residents and cause havoc. There's no other purpose for them to come to our city at all. And they're also, like the mayor said, going into the county as well. In anticipation, we requested and received assistance from the Pennsylvania State Police. They provided their air support using their helicopter to keep surveillance on the group. Like I said, at about just a little bit after 8 o'clock, we received a dispatch call that a large group of motorcyclists, ATV riders, dirt bike riders were gathered in the area of the Pagoda, causing a disturbance and loud noise. Officers on that detail and patrol officers also working normal patrol duties approached to attempt to disperse the crowd, which was well over 200 in our estimation of dirt bikes and such. One officer, Officer Michael Bouch, attempted to take a subject into custody for a criminal act in his presence and was met with resistance from that individual. Some in that crowd interfered with the officer's attempt to make an arrest and seize the dirt bike of the subject. Due to the subject's non-compliance, a struggle ensued and the officer and subject went to the ground. At this point, others in the crowd attempted to assault the officer, as you can see in the video that's going around on social media. And they tried pulling the dirt bike away from the officer. The officer had a hold on the dirt bike and a hold on the suspect as well. From the officer's custody, as well as assisting the subject to escape from the officer's custody. Someone in the crowd even threw some type of drink at the officer's head. One subject actually punched the officer in the head several times. The officer suffered multiple bruises and bled from his nose as a result. The officer called for backup, and about 11 officers arrived to assist and help disperse the group. The subject that resisted the officer was eventually arrested and is facing several charges. His name he's a Hispanic male, Luis Melo Castillo, date of birth 2/23/97. He's 5'4", 135 pounds. His listed address is 933 Ole Street in Reading, PA 19604. He has multiple charges at this point. This is an ongoing investigation. There are several other people involved, including the subject that punched the officer in the head several times. He's out and about, but we have some fine investigators that are working on that, and they'll come to justice soon. We're also reviewing body cam from the officer and other video that's available out there as well. So my message is we'll continue our efforts to reduce dirt bike complaints and will not tolerate anyone assaulting our officers. We'll continue working with local, state, and federal partners to combat this issue. I want to thank the Pennsylvania State Police for their assistance in this matter, and also the District Attorney's Office for always being there for us, for the Reading Police Department, in prosecuting these offenders. Lastly, I'm grateful that the officer is doing okay. It certainly could have turned deadly. One punch is all it takes to kill someone, and he's very lucky to be here. Make no mistake about it. Like the mayor said, these groups are dangerous, and I implore anyone with information on this type of group and where their next gathering is going to be, and any vehicles that they're hiding or stowing away somewhere, give us that information. We need that intel. And if you have information in the community, please call the Reading Police Department at 610-655-6116. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
So they were doing, from what I understand, I just want to make sure I'm clear. So they were doing some sort of like detail for the illegal dirt bikes and stuff. And you said that 11 officers came to assist when you called for backup, and that you were also partnered with state police on this, but somewhere in the air. So how many were there initially, like on the ground, to respond to that gathering?
Well, 11 officers that were working, plus the officers that were working that special detail that I started about a couple weeks ago. And that detail is very effective. By the way, we've, in about 2 weeks, we've seized over 12 dirt bikes and made 14 arrests. So it's very effective.
Also, one thing that I'm thinking. Just even though it seems like an obvious question, for clarity purposes, like what you're saying is illegal is not the fact that people are going up there to just hang out and look at it. Can you just like specifically lay out the part that is illegal? It's the loud music, it's the disturbances, the drinking, etc.
Yeah, I mean, you acknowledge that it's somewhat obvious, right? If you're out there performing criminal activity, whether it's using illegal drugs, whether it's loud music, whether it's driving beyond the speed limits, those kinds of activity is what we are referring to. There are many law-abiding individuals. I was there yesterday at 4 p.m. and saw a bunch of families just enjoying the view of the city, which I often go and enjoy myself. It's breathtaking. I even saw some law-abiding motorcycle groups that came with the shirts identifying themselves from perhaps different areas of the community, enjoying themselves. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about obnoxious, tarnishing, illegal activity and disruptive activity. Loud music, criminal acts, speeding, so on and so forth. That's what we're trying to deter, and that is what we are not. Again, we are not going to stand and be accepted. Our community, our reputation is on the line.
Mr. Mayor, that's a good segue to earlier in your remarks, you were talking about the gates, I'm closing off this area because of, so can you, I'm trying to think of the word.
What exactly the gates are referring to?
You mentioned that there are many law-abiding people. This is a treasure. This is an iconic structure to go up there to the Pagoda. And I think I remember when I came in that you were talking about the city's going to be closing off some of this for certain periods of time, weekend nights. So, how do these two things?
So that's correct. Again, in my statements, I acknowledge that we are in the process of getting approval to install higher gates. Right now, we have a gate that it closes the road, but unfortunately, individuals and dirt bikes can still have access to it by swinging around it. This time, we're talking about higher gates where there'll be zero access to that road into the Pagoda area. I'm not talking about the Skyline Drive. I'm talking about that area into the Pagoda itself, where it may be closed at evenings completely and possibly at weekends.
Yes, my question's for the Chief of Police. From a source, I have information from the detail that happened that night. And it sounds like that an hour prior, they were made aware that there was dirt bikes up and a big gathering up at the Pagoda, and that their plan was to go up there, but they wanted to wait, I assume, for a shift change or something else to not actually go up there yet until they had a bigger group so they could all go up together and box them in and do more. So is there a reason why that officer was just up there by themselves when previously they knew there was something else that they probably should bring up?
I think that initially there were officers on their way to the call. I think he got there before they got there, and
Right.
he happened to see that violation. But it's never good to approach a huge crowd. It's very dangerous. These folks, obviously, on the video, you can see things.
Well,
going
that's
back
what
very
I'm saying
quickly.
is that with
And
the state
so
police helicopter, it seemed like they kind of knew
tactically,
that.
maybe he should have waited a little bit, but he was there. That doesn't give anybody the right to put their hands out on a police officer, period.
Oh, of course not, right.
So, yeah, that's my answer there.
Do you have any more information on the details of that detail that night? How many people, because it seems like there were 2 other crashes that happened or police chases throughout the city. And just basically just the report of that, of what else was.
I was notified by First Energy Stadium, the GM at Fighting Fields, that they had saw a group of individuals on what we believe is dirt bikes hanging around the facility earlier on Saturday. There wasn't no activity action that was taken by the police. It's just that we saw again, a high group, like we see throughout the city.
No, I understand that. I was asking if there was more of a final report of just that night, because there was there was a motorcycle chase that ended around Miltimore Street, and then there was a fire.
At the dispatch records and all that.
Okay, that's fine.
We're talking about this particular incident now. So.
Oh, I know.
They're all over the county.
I was bringing that up and asking because that is the same group and the same officer that was
Probably,
involved
there's a lot
up
of
there.
groups
So
out there, and they're all over the county. And that same day, I saw them out in the county in another city.
Okay,
And I
that's
actually saw them blocking traffic and running through red lights. They're dangerous, dangerous groups. If they're in a group of 200 and they're doing that kind of stuff, then they're all dangerous at that point because they're violating the law and causing, problems for people in the public, their safety and whatnot. So.
could you speak on a little bit of the challenges that your officers have around when they're doing it, either detail like this or day to day, trying to wrangle
We
illegal
have
dirt
a
bikes?
few officers, 200 bikes. We don't even have 200 people in the police department. We try to do what we can, and that's why it's important. Like I said, we need that intelligence to know where these bikes are being stored so we can go and start investigations. We need to know who's doing it, just whatever information we can get to work it that way, because we obviously don't have the number of officers that we need to address that properly. I don't think any agency does, to be honest with you, and they're all over.
Thank you.
And I'll wrap it up with this. I stated that we're not alone in this. This is not an issue of Justin Reddy, and not that I'm trying to justify or even put blame on any other municipality. This is a problem that is being battled throughout the state. I often go to other areas, and unfortunately, I see that kind of unacceptable behavior. But here in Reading, there's no place for it. Not talking about the others. I'm acknowledging them, but I'm not talking. I'm concerned about Reading. We're not going to accept it. We have to do better, folks. If you are a parent, if you're a sibling of somebody, if you know that is taking such actions, obnoxious actions, please talk to them. Their reputation is on the line. My reputation is on the line. I'm not going to stand for it, folks. It has to come to an end. But we're not alone in this. We have to do this together. I'm going to ask clergies, I'm going to ask school, I'm going to ask, as I always have asked, not-for-profit organizations, I'm going to ask neighbors. We're all in this together. Together, we can do more. Thank you. I am going to make a statement in Spanish, if you like to be here for that. Estamos reunidos aquí hoy para abordar los problemas actuales que han estado alterando la calidad de vida en nuestra comunidad. Con demasiada frecuencia en las noches de los fines de semana, las personas continúan reuniéndose con la intención de festejar, lo que resulta en un comportamiento ruidoso y desagradable, perturbando a nuestros residentes y acompañando la reputación de nuestra comunidad. Y es una lástima porque esto es algunos, no es la mayoría de nuestra gente, es solamente algunos individuos que no tienen nada mejor que hacer, pero que hacer lo que no deben para interrumpir la calidad de vida de la mayoría de la comunidad. Todos estamos hartos y frustrados por la total desconsideración por nuestras instalaciones públicas. Y en este caso estamos hablando de la Pagoda. Todos vieron los videos de este fin de semana. No es aceptable, mi gente. No es aceptable. Es un bochorno para nuestra comunidad. Si hubiese sido un hijo mío que estuviese estado haciendo esos actos, o que yo veo que tiene una motorita de esa, yo estuviese hablando con él ahora mismo. Le pido a ustedes que hagan lo mismo, por favor. Estamos en esto juntos. Tenemos que coger orgullo de donde vivimos. Tenemos que coger orgullo de quiénes somos, de nuestra reputación. Yo me bochorno como latino, que desafortunadamente la mayoría de las personas que estuvieron este fin de semana eran de nuestra comunidad, de nuestra habla, dándole a un policía. No es justo, mi gente. Nosotros hemos tratado varias soluciones en un intento de mitigar este problema. A pesar de las patrullas policiales adicionales y de que también Vianos ha contratado una compañía privada para que nos justificara en caso de que vieran algo que no fuera apropiado, no ha funcionado, no ha trabajado. Desafortunadamente vamos a tener que coger y llevar decisiones que yo no hubiese querido. Estoy en el principio de preguntar que vamos a instalar algunos gates, portones que van a cerrar la entrada de esa área de la Pagoda totalmente. Eso va a ocurrir comenzando en las tardes hasta por la mañana y posiblemente los fines de semana completamente. Y es injusto para las personas que les gustan, como yo, ir a disfrutar de lo bella que es nuestra ciudad y lo bella que es esa área de la Pagoda. Qué injusto que tengamos que llegar a estas acciones drásticas por el culpa de algunos que no quieren obedecer la ley. Estas medidas pueden ser y parecer duras, pero creemos que es necesario para detener este comportamiento destructivo y peligroso. En el fin de semana pasado, otra reunión se intensificó hasta el punto que un oficial de policía fue agredido por cobardes. Mira, yo sé que en todo grupo hay malas manzanas, pero darle a un policía, eso es cobarde. Eso es de un cobarde, perdónenme. Pero para mí, mi mamá, mi papá, me dijeron que la ley se respeta. También me dijeron, dime con quién anda y te diré quién eres. No vamos a olvidarnos de esos dichos que nuestros padres y nuestros abuelos nos dijeron. Vamos a coger orgullo de quiénes somos, de nuestra comunidad. Perdónenme si me ven frustrado, pero es que lo estoy. Estoy desvergonzado de un par que me dan a mi comunidad, a nuestra comunidad, a nuestras raíces, un mal nombre. Este tipo de comportamiento es inaceptable y debe abordarse con decisión. Por eso vamos a tomar acciones drásticas. Le voy a pedir al subjefe, Deputy Chief, Javier Ruiz, que nos diga algunas palabras en respecto de lo que ocurrió este fin de semana.
Buenas tardes, soy el jefe diputado Javier Ruiz. Voy a darte una sinopsis de lo que ocurrió la noche del sábado 8 de junio. Oficiales del departamento estaban conduciendo una iniciativa por el alto volumen de las motocicletas ilegales que están inundando nuestra ciudad. Ese grupo, el sábado en la noche, tenía participantes desde Nueva York, Nueva Jersey, ciudades locales y de nuestra ciudad, desafortunadamente, y cuales vinieron a causar desorden a nuestra ciudad. La policía de Reading, en anticipación, pidió asistencia a la policía estatal. Aproximadamente a las 8 de la noche recibimos varias llamadas de un grupo de más de 200 personas congregadas en la Pagoda. Oficiales respondieron y al responder, un oficial fue agredido por varios participantes mientras estaba arrestando a un sujeto. El sujeto fue eventualmente arrestado y el oficial recibió ayuda médica. Eso es todo.
Nuevamente, mi gente, me dirijo a ustedes. Vamos a coger el orgullo de quienes somos. Muchas cosas que se vieron este fin de semana es un bochorno. Y por consecuencia va a limitar las cosas que podemos hacer en nuestra comunidad. Paradas, festivales, reuniones sociales. Los policías no quieren trabajar porque dicen que nosotros somos disruptivos. Nosotros, me estoy incluyendo yo, nosotros. Porque toditos pagamos por algunos. Desafortunadamente, a mí me miran, no como alcalde, uno de ellos. Una lástima, mi gente, yo no debería estar aquí defendiendo nuestra comunidad, que son tantas buenas, que yo soy orgulloso de nuestras raíces, de nuestra gente, pero nada más puedo defendernos hasta un extremo. Le pido que vamos a poner de nuestra parte, porque juntos somos más fuertes. Dios me los bendiga. ¿Alguna pregunta en español? Any questions in Spanish? All right. Thank you. God bless you all. Have a wonderful day.